Hello friends of Cosmic Agency, my name is Gosha. In this brief, I think, video, I'm going to summarize some of the most important points that I grabbed from the last video, soul looping, as I believe it's an important subject. It's an important subject for us souls all to understand how the system works, because even when many of us already know and are aware of the process of reincarnation, this is like the first step in understanding how this works. And now we are being told that the reincarnation process is actually much more complex and more loopy and extensive than what we imagined before. As many non-human races, including Lyrians, stellar humans, remember their past lives, this way they are able to study these patterns that the souls follow. They remember who they were before, they remember and they understand how that past life interacts with the present one. And they have been able to establish that the souls tend to follow same families, same patterns, and same established links with other people, and repeat them many times themselves, being the same person over and over again. Repeating the same patterns and repeating even the same lives has a lot to do, if not everything to do, with the attachments you still hold and carry in your life. And it's not necessarily that it's something negative, something from which you should run. As Yaski explained, it's not necessarily that the soul loops are negative, it's something you should try to dissolve, because many times this is what the soul wants. The soul grows, as I understand, not only by following different lifetimes and different people and being different people, but also repeating and learning something new, even from the same lifetime. Because it has to be remembered, even though the circumstances are the same in that looped, repeated lifetime, you can change the varieties of events. You can change the variables. You can change the events, especially knowing what has happened before. So it will never be exactly the same life. A very important point to remember is that from the point of view of afterlife, where souls go to before they decide to reincarnate again, there is no time, there is no sequence of events. So the souls can and do go reincarnate at any time as perceived historically from the linear perspective of us humans. So you can be born here and then your next life. I hate these terms next and before, because it gives that idea of linearity, but well, that's the language we have and that's the understanding we have. So anyway, after you are born here, your next life could be back somewhere in the Renaissance time, so Second World War. There's no limit to what the soul can do from that afterlife realm. And again, it is not only possible to go and experience a life in a totally different time period, but also repeat exactly the same life. And it is exactly what happened to Svarus 2 to 9. They were going back to the same point, the same house at the lake, repeating the same life and the same events. And like I said in the beginning, it has to do with the attachments and with the ideas and with the frequency match to that specific circumstance, to that specific place and that specific body, because everything is frequency. So if you are holding still the same frequency, you will be more of the same frequency. So it will reflect in your next circumstance, which will be basically more of the same life repeated. Yes, she has a problem with the word soul. She doesn't like that term, and it is very loaded for her in a way, like, it's some kind of an entity that just hops and jumps from one body to another. However, the soul, as she explains, is the source itself, and the source is soul. But here we have one source and many, many souls. So how can that be? It's simply that the source is an overall general absolute field, let's call it that way, field of consciousness, and then within that huge field of consciousness, a soul is a point of attention, one point of attention within that field of consciousness. And the fact that it is choosing being that point of attention has to do with the ideas of that specific portion of the source, which is the soul. A soul is nothing other than a point of view of source itself, an idea it holds in its mind, defined by a limit of any kind, and that limit is the concept in source mind. But what is that concept or idea? The span of memory any given soul has that defines it as one thing and not another. One soul in particular and not another, also giving birth to the concept of duality. Now, the way I see this here is that what defines one specific soul as soul within that field of consciousness, the source, is what that specific soul knows of itself, holds of itself, how it perceives itself, the memory span it has. So if it has the memory of itself from here to here, that is going to define that specific portion of the source, creating that idea of the soul, creating that concept that this is the soul, but it's simply a memory span. And I'm here not only talking about the memory, specific memory, like, oh, I remember I had a green house in Erra before I came here. That's not the type of memory exactly we are talking about. We are here considering the memory as the innate knowingness of certain things, the innate understanding of reality. And that memory is what defines and holds that soul together as a specific entity, a soul. But if you grow and expand and your memory span becomes larger, your soul grows, then you start to realize you are also that other person, you are also that other concept. So this way you become larger, and what you envisioned as you being a soul suddenly becomes something else, something more expanded. So what defines an individual soul is that specific memory, innate knowingness span from here to here. But this is not all you are. This is just what you perceive from here to here. But once you start expanding, there's going to be from here to here, from here to here. Then you're going to be including other points of attention, other people being you, from here to here. You're going to remember their lives. You're going to remember other experiences, and then here, and then you'll be becoming more and more collective. So you'll become collective being, and that's going to be something that will define you as a soul. So that's going to be your soul, a collective group of individual souls within. So there is no specific thing as a soul. The soul is just the span of what you know yourself to be, and what you understand yourself to be, and what you understand of the reality to be. So the soul perception can be as small as just that little, let's call it that way, thing, or the large, integrating all collective beings, and that's also a soul. Once you expand to that level and you see yourself as a conglomeration of other beings, that's going to be your soul. And then large and large, and you realize you are the source itself, and in reality there are no souls. It's just one huge soul just entertaining different ideas within the field, and those specific points and ideas, spans of memories, will feel to that individual portions as a soul, as an identity, as an entity, as an individual. But in fact, there is no specific individual here. It's just the source being aware of this specific point here, and then there. And that's why from the afterlife there is no time. There is no time. So this way you can spawn here, you can spawn over there, you can be here, you can be here. There's no one but you, a collective soul. So in that sense, when you look at it that way, that huge field, the source itself, spawning itself, being aware of its points of attention anywhere it wishes, there is no time, right? There is no space from that point of view. So in this way, the source itself is appearing at different locations that seem to us, from the linear perspective, is at the same time. And that's why you have multiple people spawning, being basically the same source, the same large souls, entertaining different ideas, appearing to us, individual soul, at the same time appearing as other people. But it's actually the same soul, the same larger soul, entertaining different ideas, being us. And it's an amazing revelation, an amazing realization when you really let that into yourself. And it can be destructive, as I said in that video, to the individual perception of the identity. In a way, if you are still maintaining that position, then no, you are you and you are individual self. However, in that destruction there is expansion, and there is growth, and there is the realization that you are the field. You are purely the field, energetic ocean of oneness and of selfness, and that's that. So other souls, other people are nothing other than the same soul having a different point of view idea. One soul, many ideas, reflected at the same time as other people, looking at its own reincarnations as other people, all happening at once. And this is another very interesting point, looking at its own reincarnations as other people, all happening at once. Because you have to remember that if you look at this from the linear perspective, like Yaski says, it will never fit. So you have to drop this concept of time as a constant, as something that has to fit and be logical. When you go to the afterlife, from there you can spawn yourself back, and you do at any time, at any point, and that's what the source does. And that's what basically other people are, is different reincarnations of yourself at different points of time, split into many different fragments, experiencing itself based on its own ideas, grown from those specific experiences. But it's all you, happening at once, because there is no time. Time only emerges as the individual experience and perception of that framework, of that individual soul experiencing that specific life in a 3D linearity. It's very hard to explain these concepts actually with words. It's like I feel them inside, but I'm having a hard time finding exact specific words. Another very interesting point to contemplate and understand is that, as she says here, the experiences of a series of lives, as in A to B to C, may be intertwined in cause and effect within the experience and the life plot. We here are so accustomed to believing and seeing our life just from A to B, from the beginning of our life to the end of this life. Maybe some people believe in reincarnation, yes, but it's very definite. And we don't see the cause and effect in future lives and in past lives. But in fact, there is this intertwining life plot happening throughout all different lifetimes. The cause and effect are being meshed together. And this is another point where the concept of reverse time also comes in. The cause of one in the former life and cause of that other one may be in the future. Another case of reverse time. The reason why you made a specific choice which you resent and would like to change resides in another lifetime, creating bigger loops. So when these loops start to grow and expand and extend themselves, and knowing that there is no time from the point of view of afterlife, the soul can jump wherever. The cause of a specific event in what we perceive the now or the past actually can be in the future, because it's not linear from the soul afterlife time perspective. There's no linearity. For us here, what happens now will affect the future. However, if you consider that we are jumping and looping all over the place, then from the perspective of the other side, the cause of something that you wish to change now lies in the future. So many times you go into that future life again to repeat that, to change whatever you need to influence in the present, and that's how you go complicating things or maybe solving things. It depends on each individual soul. But that's going to be a next topic if Yaski continues to deepen the subject, the reverse time. The reverse time. Although in reality there is no time. So that's the exact mechanism how soul looping occurs. Because it is the frequency of the soul, its thoughts, that will determine where the soul will reincarnate next, and not a linear sequence in time as perceived on Earth. And what's really incredible about this is that when you realize this deeply, that from the other side, from the afterlife, from the source, there is no time. So the soul, the source, can appear and spawn itself and experience itself at any time. You can experience yourself at any time, at any place. It means that any person you meet, your partner, your lover, your friend, your parents, could be actually, and that's what's happening, you. Because it's not linear. The soul is not reincarnating in a linear way. Because soul doesn't know linearity. It all happens at once for the perspective of us from the other side, from the soul. So there is no logical sequence here. It's not like we die and then we're going to be someone else. No, we can be actually someone else now as we speak. And we are. It's another aspect of ourselves that is experiencing itself right now. So that's why you may be having an affinity with so many people and you love them and you don't even know why. Because in a way they are you. They may be a future or a past incarnation of you. Maybe you have been them already, or you will be. Because again, future, past, it doesn't exist for the other side of the soul. And this way it expands, and this way you realize that there are not just these few people in your loop being you, but more and more people are being you, and in the end everyone is you. There is no one out there but you, one mind, one soul, entertaining million types of ideas, spawning as individual people. So, as Yaski explains, there is no specific soul jumping from one body to another. As she explained, soul is source, and the source jumps its attention from one point of attention within itself to another, based on those conceptual ideas and limits. And that will be called a soul reincarnating. But there isn't any specific entity like soul that hops from one body to another. And those limits that soul has and conceptual ideas is, I think, like I mentioned above, is what defines that soul. Actually, the soul cannot even exist without those specific defining limits of its existence. Otherwise, it would just be pure source. and there would be no other people entertaining different ideas within the field. So there have to be certain conceptual limits for the soul to experience itself as a soul. Because you are so powerful and not limited to one character, and there is no time-space, you play thousands of those characters all at once. And time is only valid during the reference frame of one character or another, being part of the concept and not something exterior. As she always explains, time is not something happening to us. It's actually a product of the awareness of the consciousness itself having an experience. The topic of the deja vus is also interesting, and it also comes in here. As Yaski explains, yes, the deja vus could be explained by remembering another time loop. And at one point she even said that she doesn't like to have deja vus because it means that she has looped the situation already before. And that's why she mentioned older people tend not to have those deja vus anymore, because it means they went through the same events already in an early phase of their life, and then they are creating the variants. They are adding new circumstances. They are in uncharted territory, and that's why those deja vus stop. But also, as she explains, those deja vus could be a precognition, you tampering and accessing into the field, and finding and having something leaked from there. Again, parallel lives, past lives, future lives, and it's all meshed together, which actually ties in with the first explanation of deja vus as well. So all very fascinating. You also have to keep in mind that Yaski always changes the perspectives when she talks. She always integrates the highest, the lowest. As for her, it's all a mass. She perceives all these perspectives as one. She doesn't divide them. She doesn't see them as lower, higher. She sees things as one mass. So she here is saying that the soul, when it continues, shifting from these different points of attention, it's not that it's really learning or growing. It's just remembering what it was already, what it has experienced. And before, I remember that she also said the soul builds itself. You are in a constant process of building your soul. But it is not a contradictory statement. When you are looking from the highest perspective, the soul is just remembering what it is. Everything is already played out in the highest aspect of the source, from the highest perspectives of all. But from the ground level of our avatars, which are just avatars, ideas entertained by the source field, from that perspective, from that ground level, we are building our souls. So just remember that when you listen to Yaski, she will always be integrating different perspective in one. So thank you very much for listening to this video. The more we learn about how souls work and how the whole reality operates, the more we understand about ourselves and about our inner looping, our inner soul progression. That progression is also something linear. I would completely remove all the linear terminologies from the language. It just doesn't express exactly the concept here. But let's keep it that way. As we continue to learn about our soul progression and how it works, getting to know more and more about ourselves and understanding ourselves, we can then make truly conscious decisions how we want to continue in our soul adventure. Because adventure it is. As Yaski said, there is no limit to what the source can do. It can truly do anything as long as it thinks it with enough enthusiasm. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video as always. Bye bye!